Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the vast, ominous, and depressing comic vault. It is me, Captain Logan, and joining me, as always, is my sidekick, Austin. And Austin and I are kicking off Bat-May with one of the most seminal and important and influential comics in Batman lore. It is A Death in the Family, and 16 years into what I do, Austin, I don't know how the hell I've never reviewed this, but here we are. I've done Lonely Place of Dying, like, I don't know how I've
And they're traded together, too, like, that's usually in the Death in the Family trade.
Well, that's like the deluxe edition. There is a regular trade, and I don't think... somebody correct me if I'm wrong about this, because I'm getting ahead of myself. We're going to talk about the epilogue issue that finishes Starlin's run. We read some stuff around this, too. Thanks to Austin for thinking to do that. I'm really glad that we did that. I don't think that last issue is ever traded with this, and it ought to be.
Yeah, I don't think it has. Well, it's really weird, because the trade I have, it collects, I think, all of Starlin's run, except for this. So it just, like, it jumps from 125 to that final issue. It's very weird.
That is weird. I didn't bring them out, but I own most of these in singles still, Austin. And if I don't have, what is it, 430? That's that great epilogue issue that I'm just going to absolutely gush about when we get to. I can't wait to talk about that. I need to check my database. If I don't own that, I got to order that like stat. Like, I don't know what that's worth now. If that's a $40 or $50 comic, I'm gonna buy that. I don't care. It's such a great issue. I have to own that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been saying to you about wanting to do Starlin Batman for like 2 years now. So I was like, oh, this is my chance to like tack some issues that I like really wanted to cover onto this, because I do feel like a lot of people read this just on its own, but I think it also reads better in the context of Starlin's run.
It definitely does, because I had never done that before. And in a vacuum, it makes sense, but it's not as weighty, and it's hard to really appreciate the state of mind that both Jason Todd and Bruce Wayne are in when this happens. You almost have to either read the issues that come before it, or just have... And Extra Media does this a lot, but like have somebody tell you that Jason Todd is a little extreme in his violence and stuff, but actually getting the specific context of what he did right before this, I think is kind of of paramount importance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think there's certain things that seem weird when you read it in a vacuum. Like everybody makes fun of the Joker ambassador thing, but I think it makes a little bit more sense when you see his run and realize, like, oh, his take is a much more like world-weary Batman. Like his whole run is kind of jumping back and forth and like tackling stuff like that, and then this is kind of the big finale where it's like, oh, now the Joker's also part of that.
Yeah, and I think everybody after him for a long time kind of takes that torch and runs with it. Like, this is the Batman I grew up with most and I really loved. And when you see the guys that did Nightfall and later on No Man's Land and all of that, they are continuing that world-weary Batman, I think.
Oh, from that sense. Sorry, I meant more so like a traveled Batman. Like he's very like involved with world events. And
whatnot. I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
But you are correct about that as well.
But
no, in
yeah.
a weird way.
But I just
in
mean
a weird way,
that,
this
like,
is like
still driven but tired and like a little unsure of himself and starting like questioning his convictions a lot more. I don't think you have that that like tired, falling apart, can't hardly do the job anymore Batman at the start of Nightfall without this. Like, I feel like this is the beginning of his downward spiral. And apologies, when you said world weary, I thought that's what you meant, because he is weary.
I may have just misspoken. That's not the way I meant to phrase
You're
that.
You're fine, sorry.
No, it's okay. No, I feel like in a weird way, because like contemporary reviews for Starlin are all like, oh, he's just Diet Miller. I feel like he is the exact midpoint between Frank Miller and like the Denny O'Neil stuff where he's like traveling around fighting Ra's al Ghul. Like it's kind of like that, where it's you have a bit more Miller to it, but like he's also very much like involved with things outside of America, and he's, in this story specifically, he's going to the Middle East and Africa,
I
and
think it's a perfect blend of those two things, and not just in characterization, and in just like physically what he's going out and doing, but also in tone. When you go look
exactly.
at the Denny O'Neil stuff that you had right before and during Nightfall, some of the weirdness of this book. Of Starlin's run is absolutely in that and in exactly the same way. I was reminded of the bizarre stuff I talked about when I reviewed Sword of Asriel here with like the what was it, the chocolate taco or whatever that weird thing was. I there's a lot of really strange things. Chocolate fajita, that was a thing. And I was reading this and I just kept thinking about the chocolate fajita line.
Yeah, for sure. And no, I think it's funny because Starlin, of course, writes Iron Man, but I do feel like there was a level of Iron Man to his Batman as well, just in terms of that. I think that's kind of interesting because it's something I never really noticed.
Elaborate on that a little bit, because you know Iron Man a lot more than I do, and I don't entirely know what
Mhm.
you mean by that.
It's like that James Bond superhero flavor that we kind of bring to this. It
Sure,
doesn't have as much
sure.
of like the industrial side of it. But like Batman going around and fighting terrorists and stuff, it's updated from like the older like Vietnam stuff, and just like having his one of his villains be connected to that as well. I think it's very Iron Man in that way. I thought,
And I like that.
while also remaining Batman. Like it's not like it's just now he's Iron Man. Like I do feel like that's just a little bit of his mix.
Well, and don't you think, not to just talk about every Batman writer we can think of right now and the whole history of Batman. We'll start getting into this book, but don't you think that Grant Morrison is looking at that stuff a little bit when he goes to Batman Incorporated, where he's trying to find that midpoint between the like super science ultra tech Batman and that world travel Batman. I
Mhm.
like
Yeah,
I
for
had
sure.
that thought before until you said that, but a lot of writers trying to find a way to bring their own flavor to it by combining different versions and different emphasis, I guess, because you can do we've got so much before this street level just detective Batman where there's a crime he's trying to solve, somebody's dead, he's trying to figure out who did it, and he's the world's greatest detective, but it's all in Gotham and it's all at night, and you do enough of that and everybody wants to put their own spin on it and find different places they can put Batman in.
Hmm. Well, and Starlin's run I think is interesting too because he doesn't really use any villains. Like Death in the Family, as his kind of big ender story is the first time he's really doing that. Like he creates KG Beast, so we have that earlier in the run. But for the most part, it's just small stuff like the two issues before it that we read, The Diplomat's Son, where it's just kind of dealing with different crime stories, specifically kind of like international crime like that.
And I've never read his whole run. I should do that. I don't even know how far back it goes. Like, how many years was he on it?
I don't think he was on it that long. Like
I didn't think it was a long run. Is it even 2 years, or is it more like 12, 14 issues? Or
I want to say it was like 14, because I remember saying like, "Oh, we should do his run," and then looking at how many issues it was, and it was like a little bit awkwardly like too long to do all of it at once, so we never ended up doing it.
oh,
But I
okay,
feel like it's like something like
we
that.
could have done it 2 weeks in a row. We probably should have, but that's all right. We're doing this.
Yeah, it's okay. And I got to slip in like the two issues before it were one of the big things I wanted to talk about anyways. So able to get that in there.
So, famously, of course, we'll get the background out of the way, and then I'll have Austin give us a synopsis of everything we read for this. So, we start at
Mhm.
424 and we go all the way to 430 for this. So, Death in the Family was a way for DC to do kind of a publicity stunt. I don't know that they looked at it that way, but the rest of the world did. This was the first big death in comics that was all over the news and that people were reporting on incorrectly. You don't get Death of Superman without this at all. This later on, you get the exact same thing with Death of Superman, with Death of Captain America, etc., where they decide to kill off a character, and news sources are either dishonest or are just don't understand the medium at all and what they're talking about. And so everybody said this is the death of Robin, and people that weren't reading comics assumed it was Dick Grayson and didn't even know that there was another Robin, and it pissed off the planet, and they got a lot of hate mail for it. And if the mainstream news outlets had said they're killing off this character named Jason Todd, who is the second Robin, they wouldn't have sold as many newspapers, and DC wouldn't have gotten as much hate. But DC said, we're gonna do the story, A Death in the Family. We may kill off Jason Todd because people don't seem to really like him. If memory serves, Austin, this is the way I always heard it described. It started as, well, what is the point of Jason Todd? He's kind of just Dick Grayson again. Like he's too much of the same character. And then it turned
especially
into,
at the start.
oh, you're trying so hard to make him different now that he's unlikable, and he's inching closer to brutalizing criminals. Or more of what people were upset with was probably just, well, he never listens to Batman. He runs off and he does his own thing, and that's annoying. And we missed the dynamic duo of it all. And so DC said, well, people don't seem to like this character that much. He's kind of hated. Let's give the readers the option to kill him. And they did a poll. And they did the poll, as far as I understand it, in the middle of the story. So it wasn't that they said, we're going to kill him in this. It was, they put out the first issue or two of this and then let the readers decide. I'm pretty sure that's how it went. And then,
yeah, there's something in issue 2 about it, where they're like, find out how you can decide, or something like that.
Yeah, it was basically like watching a reality show which of course, is a couple decades after this, where you would call in and help decide who's going to get voted off the island. It's that kind of thing. And a lot of people, including Frank Miller, thought that the whole thing was real mean-spirited and cynical, and that it was kind of crazy that we would have people help decide if we're going to murder a 10-year-old. And then other people thought Frank Miller was kind of weird for saying that, because it was his idea to kill this character in the first place in Dark Knight Returns. So I don't entirely understand what that's about, but I'm sure he'd say, well, it's not mainstream continuity, and I just did it. I didn't let people help decide if he was going to die, which seemed like more of a moral issue for him.
He also doesn't kill Jason Todd in the story, so there's always a chance that he was older when he died. Like, it's just kind of vaguely. Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's true. He could have been like another Nightwing or something when he died. Like, we don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Frank Miller's funny. I've seen like recent interviews with him, and he's like, they're always killing Robins. It was fine once, but like they just keep doing it.
So, what is your opinion about the way this was decided? Like, is that too much of a silly publicity stunt? Do you think that it set a bad precedent of, we've got to do whatever the readers want, whether it's a good idea or compromises a story? Or do you see any kind of moral issue in it? Like how do you fall down on just the choice of the gimmick?
I mean, and I, briefly mentioned this to you off camera, but I always assumed that the vote thing was a gimmick, and it wasn't something that they were actually like beholden to. Especially because I don't think the story works if he doesn't die. Like, it would have completely ruined it. I think, like, even the issues leading up to this is a story. Like, I think by the end of, was it 425? Like, I feel like his fate's sealed at that point. Like,
I mean, thank goodness it worked out the way it did, or this is a really lame story. I mean, first of all, and this is where I take issue with the whole concept of this, with the title they went with. Like, if they chose to have the audience decide what was going to happen with Robin's fate before they even published the issues, then you could build the whole story around the end of this and what the impact of that would be. But they called it Death in the Family. And there was a
It would
possibility
just
that
be
that story would end with no one dying. So then it ends up figurative death in the family, I guess, because what I read, Austin, is that in fact they had a backup plan and they were going to honor the vote, and that the idea wasn't that Robin's fate was sealed. He was always going to die. It was that he was always going to be written out somehow. And so if he didn't die in this, Batman fires him and chucks him out, and he's done. So it would have been a figurative death. Robin is dead, but Jason Todd is not dead. I'm really glad it didn't work out that way.
Well, I guess like his mom probably still would have died. Like I feel like we probably still would have done that.
Oh, sure. Then it's a double entendre because then it's a death in
Yeah.
his family, I guess. That's a good point.
Yeah,
That's
it
a
could be
good
that.
point. This woman that's hanged herself here is not Robin's mom. That's a different character. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about. I'm just showing panels right now, but we'll get into this issue and why we're showing this here in a second. Tyler, I think they were going to write him off either way. Yes, they would have written him out, but they wouldn't have killed him. They would have honored the vote. They also assumed that he was going to die, and I think that's why they weren't too concerned with that title. So, like, as we said, double entendre, the title still would have sort of fit, but they were pretty sure they were going to be killing him. And in fact, I think editorial was really surprised that it was as close as it was. It was an almost 50-50 split. Like, it really actually could have gone either way. And that suggests that the character was maybe not as hated as everybody thought he was. It was maybe a vocal minority sending in letters.
I wonder.
Letters pages were the old Twitter, for those of you not old enough to remember when we only had letters pages.
I wonder what the age demographic would look like. Like, I could see it as a split where the younger readers voted "Don't kill him" and the older readers said "Kill him." And obviously, like, there's probably exceptions, but I'd be willing to bet that's probably around where the split is.
So this would not have been anything like as popular of a gimmick if they'd done it this way, and this would be a more kind of like, artsy, thoughtful thing to do. But in allowing the audience to help decide something with your story, Austin, I would much prefer a more like choose your own adventure approach. If it was, you get to help decide what Batman does in a situation, and then we'll show you what the result of that is. I think that covers any kind of weird, cynical aspect of it. I think it's just like, you guys get to help us be editorial for a month, and we promise that whatever the result is, it will be important and not lame. But I think that could have been really cool. I also think you almost have to, like in poker, show the other hand. I think if you did it like that, you'd about have to, Robin or Batman either goes in the building or he doesn't. He either goes to this country or he doesn't. I think you'd have to probably publish the other ending too, but say it's not canonical for that kind of thing to work. But I had that thought with this, where I was like, that would be a cool, if not with this, that would be a cool thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that'd be interesting. Yeah, it would definitely be weird, but at the same time, I feel like that'd be an interesting like Black Label book to do now. I think too. My big thing,
Black Label book, more interesting than publishing the alternate ending now, which apparently they're doing. You told me they're doing that, and I'm like, really? Okay, all right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's called like Death in the Family: Robin Lives, I think is what it's called.
They should call it Death in the Family: Robin's Mom Dies.
They should call it Death in the Family. Yep, it gets more cynical than us bringing him back like 20 years later.
DC should just buy the rights to What If from Marvel and start finally doing those.
Oh, yeah. Or just start using Just Imagine as their What If line.
Oh, yeah, they could do that. And they could be like, just imagine Robin's Jason Todd's mother was Lady Shiva.
Oh, you do one for every possible mom?
Yeah, all the you do all the moms. It's the Jason Todd mom saga. That would be one
Just
of those
imagine...
one-shot what-ifs where you only get like 10-page stories and they show you all three of them. You know, like all the Fantastic Four get the same power. It'd be like one of those.
But then there'd also have to be just imagine none of them were his mom, and he's like, ah, well, I guess I'll never know.
He's like, oh, apparently my dad didn't put her name in his address book. I had that thought where I was like, I mean, that's possible. The mom might not necessarily be in the address book.
At least Batman does mention that. That's nice, at least.
We'll talk about how absurdly contrived that whole thing is because it makes me laugh really. And I sent you a message where I was like, "Wow, this setup is really contrived." And I got to the next issue and I was like, "Oh, I had no idea how insane it was gonna be." With like where
there's
the
a lot
Joker
of
is and
crazy conveniences.
So this book is simultaneously really somber and sad and tragic and introspective and a really good look into the psyche and the what's the word I'm looking for, just the the real messed up childhood of Batman, and then it's also friggin' goofy and contemporary.
No, it's like everything a comic can be,
everything
all rolled into one.
Contemporarily, a lot of reviews of this complained that it was really tonally at odds with itself, and I found that somewhat refreshing now, but I also agree with that. Like, it is odd how silly and nonsensical some of this story is, with how brutal and unusual this ending is.
Well, I mean, I think reviews then were like mixed. I think they're just straight bad at this point. Like, I think a lot of comic book readers read this at this point and just go, "Oh, that's the book where Robin died," and that's all you need to know about it. Like, you have no reason to read it outside of that. I do think that's just become its history,
and that's
or
sad
its place in
because
history.
It does. I don't think you can necessarily overestimate what it does for the evolution of the character of Batman. Like, it's shockingly important for that, and is the reason that I never wanted him to come back. I think a lot of people had that. This used to be... Jason Todd had the reputation for being one of three characters you couldn't bring back in comics. So spoilers, we brought them all back now. And
it was Uncle Ben, Bucky, and Robin.
Yeah, I guess Uncle Ben is the one, but and then sometimes people would
give it a year.
Sometimes people would put Gwen Stacy in that list, but yeah, that was usually the big three that you just couldn't bring back. And then Jean Grey sort of, but that one we also did once or twice. So
Jean Grey is the type of character that we never stopped bringing back.
I thought you had a good long period where you didn't, but
yeah, and I think there was.
And like Nightcrawler stayed dead a decent amount of time. Like there's a few.
I think Bill Foster is still dead, but I could be wrong about that. I think him dying in Civil War is still there, but I could be wrong.
Yes, but that's the only character in the list that we've mentioned so far that a lot of people just forget about. Oh, that's right, he's dead. All right.
He got to be in the MCU and then forgotten there as well.
In the most forgettable movie they made.
Yeah.
It's not good or bad enough for anybody to talk about. Dan Schneider, $10 super chat. Thanks, man. In the alternate universe where Robin lives, how is the history of comics different? I bet you people would come around to liking Jason Todd, at least people who grew up with him. What do you guys think? I think Jason Todd would have been the forgotten Robin.
I don't know, because I don't know what the history of Robin looks like after... Oh, I guess in this...
Well, they would have written him out.
They still write him out.
They still write him out. So he would be Forgotten Robin.
Is the Forgotten Robin. But also, I think we're a lot more cynical about this type of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, a lot earlier. Like, the death of thing in comics.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that? Just
because we hyped up, like, Robin could possibly die. It's death in the family. And then he didn't. Like I feel like we're probably a little bit more cynical about this as a cash grab.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
From the like,
You're saying we would have been if that I see what you're saying.
yeah, I feel like that's probably a thing that happens. Like maybe when they do it with Superman, people are like, rolling their eyes and being like, "Yeah, like they killed off Robin." You know what I mean?
Well,
Uh,
it might be, for instance, it might be difficult right now to make a big deal out of a wedding, out of like two major comic characters getting married after the Catwoman debacle.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
So maybe it'd be like that.
Yeah, exactly. It could be something like that.
Well, that's the thing is DC got a lot of flack at the time for being crazy enough to actually do this, but they would have gotten flack the other way if they hadn't gone all the way with it.
Mhm.
How much do you hate being screwed around with like that on a cover, or especially if you're building up to it, where you go, this character's going to die. This is why you're buying the book, and then you go, oh, but that didn't happen. Okay, and you don't get to skirt around it and come up with a way that it sort of technically happened because you know that's not what people were there for.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly.
So, Austin, why don't you break down the first couple issues that we read before Death of the Family and why they're uh, crucial to that story, and why everybody should read them before you read Death in the Family?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first two issues are about Batman and Robin uh, finding this apartment where there's a woman that's been beaten, and possibly more. She's like an escort, and they help her, but the person that did it is the son of a diplomat, so he also has diplomatic immunity through his father, and he's in America uh, doing stuff for him, and he's also selling cocaine like on the side, like that's part of his dad's business. Like there's an illegal side to it as well. But Batman and Robin can't really touch him, and Robin is very like emotionally broken um, at trying to help this woman and realizing that he really can't. And he ends up killing the guy, and it's left sort of ambiguous to Batman in a way that Batman kind of has to, look aside, but at the same time, Batman and the reader all know Robin killed this person. And the guy's father comes back and he kidnaps Gordon, and he's like, "I'm going to get revenge." And it leads to a bunch of people dying in this garage, is what you're seeing here.
By the way,
And
can I just stop you for a second and say, how
yeah,
much therapy does Gordon need right now?
yeah, because this is right after
This is immediately after
Killing
killing
Joke.
Joe,
Yeah.
which we reference quite a bit in this.
Mhm.
Because Joker is very excited about killing Robin right after he's, uh, taken Barbara Gordon's legs, and we talk about that a few times.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I imagine he's in a horrible state, but I think that's also important for Batman as a character that this happened to both Batgirl and Robin, like pretty much back to back. Like in terms of what you were talking about earlier with getting to that place that he's at in Nightfall.
Yeah.
But yeah, so a bunch of these people, not all of them, but a bunch of them end up dying, and it just kind of leaves on a note where Batman is standing over all of this, and he's like, "See, Robin, like your actions have consequences. This is basically all your fault that all these people are dead." And then we lead into Death in the Family.
And he is going to try to bench Robin as he goes and pursues the Joker when he's doing just about the most bizarre plot you could possibly think of in the Middle East, like smuggling over a giant missile. We'll talk about all of that. It gets very weird. Um, so, like I said, this is wonderfully serious and wonderfully hilarious all at the same time. The most amusing thing to me, I gotta point this out, in the first couple of issues, or I guess in this issue into the first Death in the Family issue, is Batman has two oldest friends. and it's 2 issues in a row where he says in this junkyard scene, I've got to hurry up and get to Gordon or I'm going to lose my oldest friend. And then in the very next issue, he refers to Alfred in the opening pages as his oldest friend. And if you read them next to each other, it's like 10 pages apart. It's so good.
Maybe he knew them at the same. He met both of them at the same time.
It's like when you have too many favorites of something and you just can't decide what it is. So sometimes, like, Batman Begins is your favorite Batman movie, and sometimes 89 is your favorite Batman. It's my favorite. You just said this other one's your favorite. It's like that.
Batman Begins is your oldest Batman film until 89 is.
Roboter's 100, Batman has lots and lots of old friends and chums.
That's true.
And actually, saying chums reminds me of a point I wanted to make, which is, it's if you haven't been reading the Starlin stuff up to this, and if other 80s things you've read more recently are like Year One or Dark Knight Returns or something, the dialogue is gonna come off a little stilted and wooden. And it's interesting, this kind of balancing act that Starlin does, and I don't know that it's intentional at all, where the writing feels real Silver Age, a lot of it, but the plotting is not at all. Well, some of the plotting is, but the actions and consequences of it aren't at all. Like, good guys can kind of lose in this, but you get some of the over-the-top Joker stuff is real, 60s and early 70s, and I guess that's more bronze, but you know what I mean? Like, the way Batman talks is real formal and real kind of stilted, and it's more. I keep using this word, but like, it's more disarming or more off-putting, I think. Like, I think in a weird way, it's almost more effective because it reads like you're reading a standard old school DC comic where the heroes are, or at least Batman, always perfect, always going to do the right thing. He's talking a lot about lines he can't cross because of legal issues. And a little later, he will start crossing those lines. But these first couple issues, he reads very duly deputized agent of the law. And the vernacular he uses, the way he talks to Robin, is really super formal. And it's easy to read this and go, that's just what comics were like during this period. It's not. Some of them were. A lot of them weren't.
No, I feel like that's just part of Starlin's take on the character.
And that's not the only way Starlin writes, because he's going to go from this to Infinity Gauntlet. That book doesn't read like that in the same way to me.
No, not at all. No, I think that's just part of his take. And I wonder as well, because he'd grow up with a lot of that, a lot of that stuff that we're talking about, like the Silver Age Batman. So I could see that as him, that being part of how he interprets, reinventing Batman for the modern day at the time.
Yeah, it's like he's intentionally evolving it for the audience that grew up with it and are grown up now.
Yeah, exactly.
Because this very much reads like a book that you would think for a couple of pages is for children, and then very quickly it's not.
No, and it's super 80s. Like, I know this is what, 88, 89. I think 89. And
88.
And like, it's 88. Okay. Yeah. It's super 80s in some of its plot. Like stuff like this, I mentioned Lethal Weapon 2 to you in the diplomatic immunity thing and how funny it is that keeps coming up in this book. But this very much feels like an 80s action film. Like throughout, like the different types of stories that he's doing.
It does. There's even a helicopter. This could have been a Shane Black film.
Well, Batman also like rocks out his own helicopter that looks like the James Bond one from You Only Live Twice, which is the fifth one, so back in the '60s. But
It doesn't
that
even
made
look
me
like a
laugh because I forgot
Batcopter.
about it.
He's got bat stuff on everything but his helicopter.
Mhm.
I think.
Yeah, I think so.
There are bat wings on his darts. Like, if he
Oh, of
hits
course,
somebody with a
bad dart.
trank dart, it doesn't just have a bat symbol on it, it's got little wings out the sides of it. It's
Oh,
hilarious.
it's wonderful.
I love all
I
the.
feel like we used to do bat darts a lot more often, and now they're pretty rare. Although they are in Rises.
So, all the silly comic stuff in this, does that feel to you. Well, first of all, like, do you think it's too at odds with the serious, somber stuff?
Uh, Not especially. I mean, like it is literally, but it's that kind of thing where, um, I like a more serious Batman story while he looks like this. Like this is the way I think of Batman when I close my eyes and
Me
think
too.
Batman.
How refreshing was this to go back to?
Yeah. So it's kind of part of that like juxtaposition where it's like it's dark and serious while also very comic booky at the same time. So a lot of that kind of stuff doesn't even really jump out to me. It's like, yeah, this is just comics. Like it's some of the stuff that I like to see in the medium.
I think
Not that it
it
has to
was
always be this,
it
but
was jumping out to me because I was putting myself in the place and time and remembering just how against the rules this is.
Mhm.
That you would kill a character this way, that you, like a major character, that you would do it this brutally. That you would allow
Mhm.
this much blood on the page for a iconic mantle, if not iconic character. Again, there were people that were just saying Robin. They didn't care who was in the suit.
Mhm.
So I'm looking at this and I'm going, does the silly comic stuff help the story feel like it's not taking itself too seriously, or do you feel like it's getting you off the beaten path and making you comfortable with it where you're not going to expect it to go as dark as it goes? I think it kind of works both ways, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see it that way too. No, and I think especially now, where there's like almost like a pretentious level of taking ourselves too seriously with Batman, it's like really refreshing coming back to something like this. And I mentioned, this to you off camera, but even just getting a Joker here that's not, just a thesis on why their dichotomy works and is, the actual character
Yeah.
is so nice. And one of the things I love about the actual Death of Robin thing is that has like nothing to do with what the Joker's doing. Like it just kind of happens.
No, but that's part of the hilarious plot convenience that they're happening at the
No,
same
it
time.
absolutely is, but I love that that's not ever a part of his plan. Like it's just this is the thing I can do. I might as well do it while it's
That he's here.
around. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. But it's a double-edged sword and turns into one of those great things that ruined everything again, Austin, because there is enough at the end of the like yin yang Joker Batman dance. Like a couple of the big cliches are here, right? We're gonna do this forever. I like this dance is never going to end. I really like that the end of this story proper is Batman saying there's never a resolution. It's almost like
Mhm.
he's trapped in the rules of ongoing comics. This should have been the end of this. He goes into the confrontation with the Joker saying, "We're going to hang your results," but he goes into the confrontation with the Joker saying, "I knew this day would would someday finally come." And he gets to the end of it and he goes, "Oh, of course, there's never a resolution to this. We're going to be doing this forever." And the other uh, Batman Joker cliche is Batman's trying to decide whether he should kill the Joker and whether he can hold the Joker accountable for his actions because he's a crazy person. And we do get in a little bit into the idea that these guys don't know why they're so uh, in like intertwined in each other's destinies, but they are, and they'll always be doing that. And because we just dip our toes in it and talk about it a little bit at the end of this story is so influential, it's part of the reason we can't stop doing it. It's not the only reason. There's a lot of stories that do that. We had Killing Joke right before this. This doesn't help, though.
Well, and some of the dialogue feels like right out of Dark Knight Returns, where he's talking about like, oh, all the people that you've killed, and like I know the number and whatnot, like that kind of stuff. I think what helps here is that most of that comes down to Batman's narration, and it's a lot of just him kind of aggrandizing things
Yes.
while he's in an emotional state. I think that's one of the things that helps. I also really like that it's almost like a thing where he's like, okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna kill the Joker, and it's almost like the universe takes it out of his hands, where it's like, no, that's not the rule of how this thing goes.
That's right.
So we don't really have the scene where Batman has to stop and contemplate if he's going to kill Joker, because it gets like immediately taken out of his hands. And I just really like that note of him landing and kind of realizing that it can't end, and that as much as in this moment he feels like he needs this, he's never going to get it.
What's
Like, he's
frustrating
never going
about
to
it
have
is
resolution.
I don't know if I buy that after this he can ever be conflicted with that question again. Like, it might be that, it might be that the universe will keep taking it away from him, but I think every time he meets the Joker, he tries to murder him now. That's what should happen.
I mean, pretty much from this point on, we're going to see a lot of that.
No, that's true, but you're still going to have a lot of stories where he's back and forth on should I or should I not.
Yeah, that's all I mean, is like it's still gonna. That's gonna be the.
I just don't know if he should ever be conflicted. I think he should just like try and fail over and over again. Like, one reply puts in a super chat. Thanks, man. How do you think Jason's death impacted the Bat family as a whole beyond just Batman? What lasting shifts did it cause in their dynamics? I mean, that becomes clear just reading the books. I think. I mean, there is a pretty clear evolution with that. I think Batman gets a lot more lonery and walls himself off from his friends more and more, and I think that is a really consistent thing. That's not already baked in some, but he gets a lot more paranoid about getting people killed and feels a lot more like he shouldn't work with anybody, even though he's going to take on a Robin 15 issues after this. He's not comfortable with it and kind of does it begrudgingly, and there's a lot of no, I'll do this myself, and your Robin, your Nightwing, your Batgirl, whoever's working with him, feeling like he doesn't trust them because he's not letting them in, he's not telling them things, he's compartmentalizing everything like S.H.I.E.L.D. or something. And what's really going on is he's scared to death of this happening again. And I think and this gets into some of my character analysis with this, Austin, but I think Batman is conflicted about his own motivations for bringing on a Robin in the first place, particularly with the epilogue issue. I think he's not sure if he is. How exactly do I put this? If he is like projecting himself on characters that have lost parents the way he has and living vicariously through them again, or if he is in a much more negative way seeing himself in those characters and punishing them the way he's punishing himself. That was a big thought I had reading this.
Yeah, and if I remember right, I think there's a fight between Bruce and Dick sometime after this, around Jason's death, and I can't remember if she brings it up specifically, but she might. I think Barbara might bring it up. There's a whole issue in Suicide Squad where she like just kind of like gets everything off her chest and has like a kind of blow up moment at Batman, and I think that might come up there too.
What you're talking about with Nightwing might just be in Lonely Place of Dying, because I know he's a big part of that book.
Possibly, yeah.
which I haven't read
Yeah,
in a
and that
long time.
Suicide Squad issue would be like maybe a year or two after this, so it's not far off.
MP also put in a 4.99 super chat. I'll read this real quick, and then we'll get more into the story proper here. Thoughts on how the story interacts with continuity? References Max Collins' run, Killing Joke, Cult, even the CIA agent from KG Beast arc. And Austin can speak to that more than I can because I haven't read this entire arc.
Yeah, and also there's a reference to Englehart too. You get the laughing fish referenced as well.
Oh, that's right.
It made me laugh because I was like, oh yeah, they were buddies at Marvel. So he comes over and references his Batman run.
I mean, we made this point ad nauseum going back to this period, but it just felt like continuity was tighter then, and that everybody was talking to each other better. In editorial
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
than we get, these days,
Hmm.
and even the last 20-25 years, honestly.
I mean, Batman doesn't even have a status quo anymore. He used to.
What is your read, Austin, before we get right into the death in the family section on the reason that Robin or that Jason Todd takes this woman's death so personally?
Um, so with I feel like the take I have on that is just it's very much like a personal thing that Robin has, where it's like, uh, you're kind of like softness to just like women in general, I guess, but like abused women in the sense too. But I feel like the context that gives to death in the family for me is that it makes the mom stuff so much better. Where like there's almost like that
Yeah,
part of him that's like I want to say like a guardian angel type thing, where he kind of sees that type of person and kind of goes into that like protective mode. And it's almost like a kryptonite and to a weakness in a sense, and in that it basically gets him killed by the end.
yeah, and I like that all of that has to do with just the general idea of what family of family, and because this is going to be a death in the family, and this is about his and Bruce's past deaths in the family, the potential that he could for himself repair that a little bit because he finds out that he has a mom he didn't know about.
Mhm.
And I also think that there is a I mean, one of the big themes in this, of course, is the law versus justice. Batman kind of comes right out and says that, and
Mhm.
there's this kind of conflicted, brooding thing happening with Jason Todd, where he is trying to learn from Batman and believe in the system, and he never really has that. I think he feels like if they hadn't gone so by the book and he could just go be a full-on vigilante and not work so close with Gordon, not think so much about the rules, uh, maybe his parents would have never died in the first place, and maybe he would feel better because he avenged them. Because importantly, he had the opportunity to kill Two-Face. This doesn't come up in this, but he had the opportunity to take Two-Face out, and he chose not to. And he's like he is now because he never felt better about it. There's still a part of him that wishes he had done that, and so I think this woman that commits suicide at the end of that early issue before this, I think it's really important that it's not just that she was abused and uh, he felt bad about that and didn't like that nothing could be done about it, but that uh, it was technicality of the law that kept them from resolving that situation, and that just immediately puts him at odds with Batman. And then what's so interesting dramatically about Batman through the rest of this is there's a part of him that agrees with that, and he will compromise his own principles pretty hard in a couple of places in not going by the book, not doing what the law says, particularly with the truth serum bit, which I like a lot.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think it's interesting too because you have, Bruce and Dick and Barbara, come from like nicer kind of backgrounds. Like Dick and Bruce obviously lose their parents, but uh, Jason I think just has like a harsher life from the get-go.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting in how that kind of forms him to be harsher as Robin, and then also more willing to, bend or break some of those rules because he kind of already is before he is Robin. Like he's already in that place, but he meets Batman because he's, hawking tires.
Yeah, and it plays like, and I've always liked how kind of nuanced this is, where
Hmm.
this isn't the evil Robin. This is a Robin that
Hmm.
is really trying, but doesn't have the moral fortitude initially. Doesn't have the good role models in his life that Bruce did, and one of the reasons I love that last issue we read so much, what is it, 430,
Yeah.
is uh, it it puts everything into perspective for both Bruce and the reader when you realize uh, the kind of twist on the Wayne deaths that Starlin does, where he says Bruce had this major falling out with his father, like the day they died, and he is angry with his dad because he wanted to go play catch with his dad, and his dad had this massive financial problem he was dealing with, and he was way too stressed out, and he got angry and he smacked his kid. And Bruce says, I hate you. And he is like really massively emotionally extreme about it. And to him, in that moment, his childhood is as bad as Jason Todd's is. And then when his parents like they work all of this out, and there's still a part of Bruce that's upset with his dad, but he kind of makes up for it. And then part of what he does to make up for it is takes Bruce to the movies, and then he gets killed. And so of course that's part of the whole guilt thing with Bruce is, if only I'd left well enough alone, that would have never happened if I just never said anything. But I think that puts things into a really interesting perspective, Austin. That Bruce realizes after that like he didn't have a perfect childhood. I like that Thomas Wayne is not a perfect person, but compared to Jason Todd's upbringing, it's like he was raised by the Kens.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, like you said, I don't think of Jason Todd as, the evil Robin. He's a very tragic figure, obviously, and that's something that I think we've lost by bringing him back.
Yeah,
Um, I think he's much more interesting as a character trying to do better but ultimately can't, and that's the tragedy of him, as opposed to, oh, now he's this badass assassin.
yeah, I completely agree with that.
I like it in the movie, but that's about it.
Yeah, well, but then you can watch that like its own separate thing. I don't need any
Exactly.
continuity. I don't need
Exactly.
Red Hood and the Outlaws for 10 years. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
and I get that there's people that grew up with that stuff and really like later Jason Todd, and you're in the era that you're in. That's the thing with comic readers is that a lot of us have those comfort zone periods, and then when that all changes, and people mess with your favorite stories and start retconning stuff, you get upset with it, and you don't want things to change, and then you just leave. You're just done, and then you get a new generation that's what they started with. And
Mhm.
so you can't expect kids that grew up with Red Hood to have the same perspective that those of us that hoped and against hope that Jason Todd would never be brought back to life would have.
Well, that's why I wondered that with the vote. if there's like a breakdown on age demographic, because especially if
Yeah,
you're following for a long period of time, you have that initial Jason Todd who is straight up just Dick Grayson, where they even do the circus background for him at the beginning. And it's
yeah.
like, that's going to be your perspective, is you're like, well, this character is just Dick Grayson, and they do a better job later on in making him a better character. Like I think for me, this run like really made me understand Jason Todd when I first read it, and it made it finally click with me. Um, but like obviously, there's so much history before this where you don't really have that.
Well, what's complicated about him as a character for me is I don't think he's interesting without killing him.
Yeah, absolutely. I
And I
mean,
mean,
that's
you could have stretched it longer. You could have done some cool stuff, I guess, in getting him to an even more extreme place. And I mean, you could have almost done Jean Paul Valley before Jean Paul Valley.
mhm.
I guess where the other direction to go with him is to make him a villain for a minute. Where now Batman has to have a big showdown with him because his MO is something Batman can't accept, and he's now like killing criminals on a regular basis, or not saving them, letting them die, and Batman's not okay with that, and like that would have been a direction to take it.
Mhm. Yeah, you could have done that. Absolutely.
And then they could be allies later where they have to sort of agree to disagree and come up with a compromise, kind of like Batman does with Azrael. He could have been Azrael before Azrael. I've never really had that thought before.
Yeah, that could have been. It is unfortunate though, because we talked about the sand killing joke. They're very much both like the biggest issues Batman has at this point, and they've both been undone at this point. Like, it's not just this.
They both what now?
They've both been undone to some degree,
Oh,
in
yeah,
that
that's
Barbara
true.
also just got her legs back.
It's also so weird. Yeah, but I think she loses him again. I think we kind of retconned that back at some point.
Oh, okay, possibly. I thought she just still had them, but I don't know.
No, so if memory serves, and it's been a long time, but tell me in the comments, guys, if I'm wrong about this. New 52 has its cake and eats it too. Keeps some things, gets rid of other things, and it says, well, we want Barbara Gordon to get to be Batgirl again, but instead of just retconning it where that never happened, which is what they should have done because it's New 52, they said she had a miracle cure, like a miracle surgery, and she's got her legs back now. And then at some point after I stopped reading, after Rebirth, because Rebirth sort of soft reboots New 52, but never full on brings back the old continuity. I think they just got rid of all that and actually brought back the old continuity entirely and just said she never got her legs back. Like that never happened. And so it took her back to Oracle. I think that's what they did.
Oh, weird.
It's
Damn
even
comics.
weirder if you read the Dan Jurgens Superman stuff, where they have a reality shift where New 52 Superman never happened, but everything else in New 52 did. And then at some point they retconned all of New 52, I think. Somebody tell me if I'm wrong about that, because I just got this from osmosis. I wasn't reading anymore at that point.
Yeah, I don't know, because I mean, like, obviously Tom King is still building off of Snyder, but Batman's weird in that every
Yeah.
time we reboot, Batman kind of doesn't.
Yeah, and like all the way through 52 and Rebirth, you can't tell if like Nightfall really happened the way it did.
Mhm.
The Bane's constantly talking about breaking Batman's back, but I don't know if that really happened. And anyway, I don't want to get in the
And
weeds with that. We should talk about the weirdness of the Joker plot in a second. But first, Chewbacca's Lover, $10 super chat. In the 90s on animated series, guys were talking about how they got away with killing Dick's parents in TAS, and then said the one thing he was sure of is what was done to Jason Todd would never be done in animation. Just because for a Fox Kids cartoon, it was kind of a bridge too far. They would not have gotten away with that at that period. And there was a lot of talk about doing it, but
can
they
do
just they just
now is
didn't think
very different, but
they just
even
didn't think
now,
they
I
could
don't
get
think
away
you
with
could
it.
go that far.
Austin, I think we have a lag or something, man.
Oh,
And you're frozen on my screen here.
Oh.
I'm gonna hang up and call you back. Sorry, guys. Hopefully, we can fix this lag. Give us just a minute here. Hopefully, Austin hasn't lost his connection. He's gonna have to hang up on his side, also, though. I think. Well, this isn't what you want. Weird. I'm not sure what's going on here. Give us just a couple of minutes here. We'll try to figure this out. I think I'm gonna drop out of the stream for a minute and try to connect with Austin and then come right. Okay, I think we're back. Apologies, everybody, watching live and after the fact. We had to blip out for a minute because Austin. I guess if we were blipping out, only one of us would have been lost.
That is 50%, though. You technically were not gone. You chose to leave.
Oh, that's true.
But...
It was 50%, yeah. And it's ironic that Thanos blipped out the one of us wearing the Infinity Gauntlet shirt.
True. No, it's funny. So today I was like, oh, I wish I had a Batman shirt because we're doing Batman, but I have something that just doesn't connect at all. And then I went, wait a minute.
It connects perfectly.
It connects perfectly.
I thought that's why you did that. I thought that was actually a really cool choice. It's Starlin, and Infinity Gauntlet is what he went to Marvel to do after DC didn't give him enough work after this book. Because what's weird is this sells really well, but DC ends up needing a scapegoat for how upset some people are about this book, and apparently because licensees were mad that Robin merchandise was selling really well, but they killed off Robin.
Oh, that's really funny.
Yeah.
I also forgot until rereading this that this is when Mignola's still at DC.
Yes, because he does
some of the covers. Yeah.
And they're wonderful. I love Mignola Batman.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I always hear him talk about how he didn't really work at either of the big two, and like he does still have stuff though that like really works. I know there's like a Batman story. I forget what it's called, but people always call it like a Hellboy story before Hellboy, where it's Batman in a cemetery. That's really cool, and yeah, his art looks really good with that. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, he didn't do a lot. I wish he did more.
Great. Yeah, yeah. I think he kind of just came in and was like, "I'm not right for this."
Which
I mean, fair enough.
I like.
Yeah,
I think he's great for Batman. That kind of makes me sad, honestly. But anyway, another point I wanted to make about Starlin real quick is he's one of the few comic writers I can think of that is equally good at street level crime drama and big cosmic event stuff. It's always weird when I go back because I always forget Starlin did this. I go back and look at that and I'm like, Starlin's the Thanos guy. It's like Starlin has star in his name because he does space stuff.
Well, and you know, obviously, like he's got a big run on Silver Surfer and Captain Marvel and Adam Warlock. Like a lot of his Marvel stuff is in line with that too.
Yeah, like I think
he's done stuff outside of that. Like he did Iron Man, but like, yeah.
I think of him as the next most important and influential name in the cosmic side of Marvel to Kirby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Like he developed so much of the later lore.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and I was going to say I would have said that he's like the most influential, but only because Kirby to me is just Marvel, so it's like I'm not really thinking about one side or the other. Like he's so much a part of just sparking off the entire concept. So
Yeah.
like I wouldn't have even thought about to put it that way, but you're right.
Well, I agree with you. I'm just being diplomatic, really. I just think like
No, but I mean you
lightning
are
is gonna
correct.
strike me dead if I say Starlin is more important to Cosmic Marvel than Kirby. So I don't think I can say it out loud, but internally,
No.
that's what I'm really thinking.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's like saying, which Godzilla is your favorite movie. Like, 54 is the best one, but like,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that.
I mean, I think a case could now maybe be made for what is it, -1, but
Mhm.
MP499
-1
super
is the
chat.
Starlin.
It's there it is. MP499 super chat. Thanks a lot. In retrospect, do you think killing off Robin in the main continuity was a line the Batman books should have crossed? Yes, absolutely. I think
Mhm.
I think this is actually the best thing that ever happened to Batman's character, personally, or one of the best things that ever happened to his character. I don't think, as we said, Jason Todd should have ever been brought back to life. I don't think that line should have been crossed, and partly because I think this is so important to the evolution of Batman as a character. I think, like, I like the deconstruction of this part of it, where you say, because like I think we've gotten to deconstruction happy, but this is a place where I think it's a really good idea to put a mirror up to Batman and go, should you really be taking advantage of teenagers like this? And like, should you be going out and finding people that have the same background you do and conscripting them into your army and saying this is what people like me are supposed to do, instead of like letting them go their own way? And again, which is it? Are you giving them the opportunity to like make up for their parents' death in some way the way you did, or are you punishing them because you feel guilty for your parents' death? Like, which is it? I think I think it makes sense that the universe is asking Batman those questions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I understand the question obviously because there's certain things where you go, okay, like you did it, was it worth doing? And I think for something like this, I think the answer is yes. But um, like I kind of see this in the same way that I see something like the Spider-Man drug issues, where it's like you're pushing forward to then allow the medium to kind of go to places it wasn't able to go to before.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I don't know if I would feel the same way if it was Dick Grayson that we killed off. I think this is kind of a loophole thing where you can make the second Robin a misstep. And that's part of why I like it, is that it's a misstep. But again, that it's not just straight up evil Robin, but that Batman jumped the gun and this was really not the kid to make Robin. But you can also see why he
Mhm.
thought it would work out. And he's got those
Yeah.
warning signs early on, but he goes, I'm pretty sure that's all going to get ironed out, especially like Batman's not made to look like an idiot here. You never go, Batman, how in the world did you make this kid Robin? It's
Mhm.
not like, yeah, I know I'm gonna get flack for this, but this is just the first thing that comes to my mind. It's not like the thing I always had with X-Men First Class, where I'm like, Xavier, you looked into Magneto's mind, you can tell he's a murderer. I don't know why you think he's never gonna do that again. It's not like that.
Mhm. No, and I mean, I also think Jason Todd doesn't really come off as stupid. Naive, absolutely.
Sure.
But like I do think that he does a good job of striking that balance on both characters. And something I like too in this is that Batman has a lot of moments where he goes, I should have caught that. Like I should have been able to see that. And that's something I miss with Batman, where we often don't really do that kind of a thing. With exceptions, like I do think that's something that we do obviously in the last movie, but with like the kind of God Batman we've got in comics.
That's a lot of why this is so refreshing to me, is you've got a Batman that can be the world's greatest detective. He can say I'm the best I am at what I do, but he
Mhm.
doesn't have to, but like he can get his ass handed to him. And
Mhm.
he doesn't have this
Yeah.
technology that makes everything possible.
Yeah, and he's not always right about things. Like he can be wrong.
Well, and there's always an actual sense of danger and stakes, even when he goes into uh, a junkyard and he's just fighting some thugs with guns. Like, there's a couple of tense moments where those guys could have gotten the better of him. When was the last time in modern Batman comics you saw Batman go up against just a dude with a gun and you thought there was any chance he'd die? Like, it never, and I don't mean to say that it's all about will he or won't he die, but you want those sense of stakes. You want to go, Batman is still just a guy. We simultaneously always say Batman's the best, people that love Batman, Batman's the best superhero because he's not actually super, he's just a guy. And he's the most not just a guy these days of any superhero there is, even over Superman. Superman feels way more mortal much of the time than Batman because Superman doesn't have the I'm Superman question. You always have to explain how Superman manages to get out of something. These are the powers that he used. Batman is just, he's Batman. He made it. Well, that makes him more immortal than Superman narratively. It just does. Superman doesn't have that kind of plot armor.
Especially because when we put those two characters together, we tend to pump up Batman more than Superman.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we always talk about, like you said, the Batman's interesting because he's just a guy and he does this. I think we got too lost in the he's just a guy, but like can do these things, and it became not just he can be a crime fighter, but also he can be on the same level as the rest of the Justice League. Which, I mean, I agree with to some degree, but we've just taken it too far. Especially in solo Batman things.
It's so weird how this is a big event that, compared to big events now, reads like just a cool Batman story where he goes and tries to solve a crime.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even the events didn't used to read like that.
Yeah. Well, and that's something like I've kind of wanted for a long time. Is just something like this where we don't necessarily have to do, the big stories every time. We can just have small, like, one-off stories, and you don't necessarily always have to go to the Rogues Gallery and things like that. We can kind of, step away from that and just do random crimes in Gotham.
So one of the things that's weird about Death in the Family, I'll get to the super chat in a minute, the 4 issues, is that the first 2 issues are doubled in page count. They're like 45 pages. And then the second 2 issues are normal sized. I don't know why that is. There's not any weird, like, change in creative team that makes that decision or anything. It's all the 2 Jims. It's like They Might Be Giants. You got 2 guys named Jim. You got Jim Starlin, Jim Aparo, and Robin was murdered by 2 very talented guys named Jim. And for some reason, they, instead of just doing a 6-issue miniseries, they have 2 45-page issues and then 2 22-page issues. I don't know why that is.
Especially because you can see where the issue cutoff would be in both of them, and like they're also structured like they're 2 issues. I wonder if maybe that was just they were signed on to do however many issues, and this is like what they wanted to do, and just didn't have enough like time. Like they didn't have enough issues and what they were paid to do. Maybe I don't know.
It's always weird when you're like, I'm buying these issues in singles and I want all of Death in the Family, and I just paid X number of dollars for these 2, and then the 3rd issue is much cheaper. It's kind of weird.
Well, yeah, no, it's really funny because it's very much front loaded in the way it's structured, where you almost have like most of the story in 2 issues, and then like your second act, I guess, is your 3rd issue, and then the 4th issue is just kind of a climax. While the first 2 is like a really big first act.
And I'm glad 3 and 4 aren't padded because they don't need any more than they've got. I think arguably you could possibly truncate 1 and 2 down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess the nice thing is, we've mentioned like there's a lot of conveniences in this book. I guess it's nice. I guess it's nice to a degree that we kind of live with going to each one as like a little adventure, and it's not just he happened to get to the right one the first time. I guess that's nice.
Yeah, that's good. One of the things that's weird about this structurally is once you, uh, once you start getting into the pattern of we're gonna go to one of these women that might be Jason Todd's birth mother, and he's gonna find out that it's not actually his mother, it suddenly reads like a fairy tale structure where it's like this porridge is too hot, this is too cold, this one is just right.
This porridge is an Israeli spy. This porridge is an assassin training terrorists. This porridge is gonna have me killed. But it was the correct porridge.
It was the right
that
porridge.
I was looking for.
And then that porridge, I'm going to mix this metaphor so damn hard. And then that porridge turned out to be a Trojan horse.
Exactly. And that Trojan horse porridge really screwed the pooch on this one.
So let me break down why this is so bizarrely convenient. Because it starts at a really convenient place, and then I just throw my hands up in the air and I go, what? What? And some of the story flaws with this are why it's fun. Like, I'm not even mad at it, but I'm going to give you the news here, okay? So, what happens is, tell me if I'm missing something, Austin. Jason Todd is benched by Batman. And the timing is a little convenient, where immediately after he gets benched and he can't help Batman go solve the next crime he's going to go deal with, because Batman's going to run off and try to figure out what the Joker is doing in the Middle East. Robin goes, or Jason Todd goes back home, and a neighbor lady has old things from his father, and gives him those artifacts. And in that is his father's address book. And he realizes looking at this, or sorry, an address book and also a birth certificate. And the birth certificate, isn't that what it is, Austin? And the birth certificate has the first letter of some woman's name that is not the first letter of the woman's name that he thought was his mother, who is dead. And he goes, I have to find out who this is. And he looks at his mother's address book, and being trained by the world's greatest detective, he realizes that he can narrow down who this is by looking at the S's. And the three women in the S's, there are only three women, and so he's already narrowed it down quite a bit, and he's going to go find out who they are. And
they all happen to be in the same kind of area
all
in the
three
world.
of them happen to be in the Middle East. They all happen to be around where the Joker is doing his plot in the Middle East, and already I'm going, this is bizarrely coincidental, right? That Batman's gonna go deal with the Joker's plot, and then he's gonna run into Jason Todd, because Jason Todd's mission has led him to a woman that the Joker is dealing with, who is the first person that he thinks might be his mother, right? And already I'm going, this is way too easy and hilarious. And then it gets nuts, because the very next issue, you realize that not only has the Joker linked up with the first woman that Robin thinks is his mother, but he's going to, in order, keep dealing with the women that Robin is going after. Like, even if
he doesn't deal with the second one, luckily. It is just 1 and 3. But they're all, like, somewhat involved with, like, terrorism.
So they don't see... I thought the deal with Shiva was... she's involved in that plot somehow, but Robin and Batman just never see the Joker there. But I thought Joker was also around there.
No, she's just training terrorists in that area, but Joker was also, like, just dealing with them. So, like, you have a connection through that, but Joker's leaving during that issue to go see the third one.
Okay, but it's still just as silly, because he's going to the same places in the same order, that
Well, he doesn't ever connect with the second, with Lady
does he
Shiva.
not? I thought he was
No,
leaving where she was or something. Well, whatever. Because it's still
don't think
hilarious that
so. It is still funny,
even two of the
but
three though, because he could have easily gone to the last one first and the first one last, like. And also, why are two of the three of these women involved in this plot? Like, it's crazy.
Well, what's even funnier
It's
is that
absolutely
it's not all
mad.
What's funnier too is it's all not just one plot. Like he comes up, he's like, "I got this one thing I'm gonna do, and it involves this woman." He's like, "Oh, that didn't work out. I guess I'll go do this other thing," and it's with the other woman.
It's with the other woman. I
Yeah.
think one of the simultaneously, this is so silly and nuts, and then I'm so caught off guard because I'm laughing at this that I am not expecting the double cross with Jason Todd's actual mother, where it turns out that she's been what is it? Some kind of smuggling plot?
Yeah, so she is in a camp for people who aren't well off in Ethiopia, and she's giving out like medical supplies and just different supplies. I think there's maybe food as well, but so she's taking money off the top. And she used to be a doctor in Gotham, but she did like unorthodox, illegal experiments and surgeries, and she knew the Joker from that.
Okay, I missed some of
Yeah,
that stuff.
yeah. So that's the reason why she's there now. But she's like already like a shady person that's like doing stuff there.
And
And then the Joker comes in and he's like, "Oh, I know you. Like, you can help me take this stuff and these supplies, and then I'm gonna drop my Joker gas in here." It's kind of funny because his plot there is not really big. Like, it's just I'm gonna replace supplies at this camp with Joker gas, and that's funny. Which I like. I like that his plans are never that huge.
no, and I mean a little bit bigger when he ends up being uh, an ambassador for Iran,
Hmm.
which is
Well, I love that he just kind of stumbles into that. Like
yeah.
they're like, "Oh, you're." It reminded me. I don't know if he had
But once
this,
he
but
has that, his plot is a little bit bigger than what we're talking about because he's going to try to like nuke the whole UN.
yeah, I like that he's like, "Oh, you're gonna make me an ambassador, whatever. I'm just gonna gas the UN." Like that's why it doesn't feel big to me. Like it's
Yeah.
like they're like, "Oh, we're gonna put you in front of the UN," and he's like, "Cool, I'm just gonna gas it because I'm the Joker," and that's funny.
Well, I have a big
I like,
issue with that narratively when we get there, but
yeah, absolutely. But it reminded me of the Suicide Squad, where there's the part with the
yeah.
dictator and Harley, where she's like, "Oh, I think you should be my wife because you represent like disdain for like America or whatever." And we never come out and say that here, but I was thinking like it's kind of a similar idea by doing that with Joker.
That's a great point. Well, he does of course have his big speech about how like he's insane and the terrorists in that country are insane and he's like seeing it as kindred spirits and in present day a lot of people hate that and are angry with that because they see it as Islamophobic and it is simplifying the whole thing way too much, of course.
But what I like about it is I don't believe he actually believes any of that. Like I feel like he's just kind of saying things. Like they're like, here's this role we're gonna put you in, and he's like, oh yeah, like I feel very strongly about this. Like you guys are like tearing down the people of Iran, and I don't like that. And it's just, not like he doesn't actually care. Like he's just there to
Yeah,
gas the
it really comes
UN.
down to whether you think there's any truth in it,
Mhm.
on the part of the writer. Like if you think Jim Starlin thinks there's
For
a
sure.
grain of any of truth of anything he's saying, or if it is just the Joker kind of mess around playing politics in the same way as I one read a lot of people have with this book is a kind of meta commentary on editorial and the way comics are written and the way we'll listen maybe too much to fan interest instead of just telling a story. And I'm like, my problem with that is, and this is the thing I really like about this this book, Austin, is you can't read into any of that unless you know that the fans made a vote.
Hmm.
Like, I think Starland does a really good job of just telling a story around that. Like with like that decision gets made in the middle, but there's nothing jarring about it. There's nothing that feels commentary-ish about that to me,
Hmm.
because it's all real character
Yeah.
driven from Batman's perspective.
Yeah, I mean, to kind of break down what the Joker's doing in this,
Yeah, yeah.
like a little bit, and to kind of get into why I think he ultimately doesn't care. Um, he breaks out of prison, and he's like, "Okay, I have this missile that I want to blow up City Hall in Gotham with, but I have no money. Like, I need to get some money, so I'm gonna sell this missile." And I'm gonna get some money, and then I can go back to doing crime stuff. Like as much as I don't want to do that, that's what I'm gonna do. And he goes to the Middle East to sell it to terrorists because that's kind of the only place the Joker can sell a missile. Like he's not gonna be able to take that to the American government and be like, "Hey, come buy this missile." But he like disassembles it and rebuilds it, and it just explodes the second that they try to launch it. Like it's not like he sells them, a working missile, and we never really talk about it too much. But I don't know. I feel like that's something that he definitely did on purpose. I don't
I didn't think
know.
of that.
And then he goes off. He's like, okay, I'm gonna do this plot with these refugees where I steal their stuff, and then he's approached and they're like, hey, be our ambassador, and even the outfit I think is him kind of. Taking the pee, if you will, from the British perspective, where he's wearing like a very stereotypical outfit, and you can see when he lifts his arms, he's just wearing his regular outfit underneath it, and he's only wearing it to hide the fact that he has these like gas guns on it.
Yeah, you'd have to think
Uh,
about who the character is that
yeah,
is doing the
so
thing. It's like, is it
yeah,
just is it Starlin being insensitive about that whole situation, or is it the Joker intentionally being insensitive about it because he's the Joker?
yeah, exactly. That's the way that I read it. I don't think Starlin is coming out and saying that. I think the Joker's doing that because that's very much something that the Joker would do.
And that's a topical hot button thing right then.
Yeah, and there's definitely quite a bit of that in Starlin's run, like I said, and even the two issues before this, where we're kind of dealing with, people from another country. But like, I don't think he's coming down uh, in that sense and saying like these people are just the Joker. Like,
That's
obviously, in
never how
terms
I
of like,
read it, but I thought I should
mhm,
probably mention that just because, of course,
yeah,
that's a thing that these days people, I think, read too much into with that. But
yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think some people honestly have a hard time with that, the difference between is a character doing this or is the writer saying this. But I think everything in this book is saying, to me at least, that this is the Joker doing that as opposed to Starlin.
yeah, I agree with that. One thing that I think is weird about some of the choices the Joker makes in this is he seems really concerned with uh, getting rid of people that have seen him accomplish crimes. I don't want people to know about all the people I've murdered recently, and I'm like, you're an escaped convict. Like the law is all should already be after you, and this is
Mhm.
before he has the diplomatic immunity thing. I That's not even his plan. Like you said, he's not trying to get diplomatic immunity. He's he's escaped to another country, so he's not going to be pursued in the same way. But he's like, this is the whole reason that he kills, or that he tries to kill Robin's mother along with him. It's like, oh, you're a loose end, and I have to wipe away any evidence that I was ever here. And I'm like, why?
I think it's just for Batman, where he's like, I don't want Batman seeing this and being like, oh, I did it, so he's going to come immediately for me. And then he's
Well, that's true, because
lucky that he gets
he
the.
does say, okay, you might be right, because he does say if that it's weird that Batman always needs evidence before he'll come after me. I thought that was an amusing thing where he was like, Batman doesn't, even though I'm like a multi-murder, I've murdered all these people, and also I escaped from, like, Batman doesn't need an excuse to go after the Joker. He's an escaped convict. All Starlin had to do was have Joker somehow get released from prison, but he has escaped, which means there's already a crime to prosecute him for.
No, I got the sense more so that he's like, oh, Batman's gonna see this and like immediately gonna come kill me for doing it. So he's like, I'm just gonna blow him up, and then he'll never know that I did it.
I guess that's what
he could have been killed by anyone.
But I was gonna say earlier, it's just really sad that Robin is so desperate to make this familial connection, and his mother ends up being the reason he dies, and that's not a thing anybody ever talked about with this book.
No, and it's not something we've ever really done in adaptation, but I do think it is important to the story. No, I really like Robin's search for a mom. There's even stuff like he
and we
gets
watch him work so hard for it, and he finally gets it, and he just asks no questions, and you're like, this is a real shady situation. Like, and Bruce is so happy for him, and that speaks volumes about his background and you know, the death of his parents and all of that. That he's naive enough to just leave him there, and he's like,
yeah,
"Oh,
there's
he
like
just needs
no
some time with his
discussion.
mom." I'm like, I think you should interrogate his mother and find out why she's there. But okay, and then he just leaves and he goes, "Whatever you do, don't go after the Joker." And then of course that's what he does.
Well, and there's also, it's not like Bruce drops him off and is like, maybe I should stick around, you know, because this woman did leave Jason Todd as a kid. Like, it's not like,
Yeah.
you know, she was a great mother in the first place. You know what I mean? Like, there's never even that moment where he questions that. He's just like, oh, well, you found your mom. This is everything you ever wanted. I'm going to leave you. You're right. I do think that does say something about Bruce.
And I don't think that's him being stupid. I think that's a massive oversight on his part. Like, I think that's an intentional flaw in his character.
No, I'd agree, because you really see with Jason where it's like, if you're paying attention, you can see that she's really shady and not a good person. But Jason is like, completely overlooking that. Like, he's even listening in when the Joker mentions that there is a dead teen because of her back in Gotham from when she was a doctor, and he's just like, "Oh man, like the Joker's blackmailing my mom. Like, I gotta go help her." But I think it also works well as a twist because the book is constantly saying, like, "Look, this is a bad situation. This person is bad," but it's almost like you're trained to know that either she's gonna come around by the end and help them out, or she's not that bad. Like, she's not fully gone. And I mean, she's not to a degree, but also
she's willing to let the Joker kill him so that he can't tell anybody about what she's doing. Like, that's her tying up a loose end, and it's her son. By the way, I've been holding on to this page just because I wanted to mention I love this panel layout.
Oh, I actually can't see it since I came back.
I'll fix it.
No, it's okay.
But, okay, here, I'll connect that so that you can see it, and then I'll move on to the actual things we're talking about here.
There we go. Let's see this. Oh yeah, that's a great page.
But anyway, we've been looking at this for like 10 minutes, so I'll start going to some other.
You just really wanted people. Oh wait, hold on. Go back for a second. I want everyone to see the one of my favorite images. Yeah, this Batman look.
We need that as a pop figure.
Yes, I want that as an Arkham skin.
That'd be great.
It's wonderful.
Anything else you want to say about this section before we go to the Iranian ambassador thing? Because I want to talk about why I don't love the Joker's gas plot there. But go ahead.
Yeah, the last thing I wanted to say with this too is in Robin's search for his mom, I like you have that bit between him and Bruce after they find Lady Shiva, where he's like, "Oh, I mean,
there's the bat dart. There's the wings of the bat dart."
Yep, there it is. I like that moment where Bruce is like, "I mean, you wouldn't want her as a mom, though, right?" And Jason's like, "Well, no, but if she was, like, I would want to know.
Yeah, and
Uh,
then you get to the last one and she seems perfect to him,
mhm,
and it's worse than if it was Shiva.
mhm. No, the first one would have been the best one. She was the good one.
Yeah, of course it wasn't going to be her.
Mhm.
Did you have this thought? If it turned out that Lady Shiva was Jason Todd's mom, and I'm glad she wasn't, because that would have even been just compounding the coincidences. Because Lady Shiva's like an actual major Batman character. Oh, of course, like a character we've heard of has to be his mother. Like, of course, that'd be a weird retcon. So I'm glad that wasn't the case. But if you have this thought, it's not, of course, 1-to-1 the Damian Wayne thing, but I don't know if Damian Wayne would have had the same mother if Shiva had been Jason Todd's mother.
I don't know, because obviously, like, that does spawn from the Denny O'Neil, Neil Adams run,
Yeah,
but
well, that's true.
possibly. I think also at this point, Lady Shiva's not really like that associated with Batman, so it wouldn't be as crazy as it is now.
See,
But
I thought going all the way back with this period that Lady Shiva was one of the people that trained Bruce, and they don't know each other in this.
mhm, yeah, I think they mentioned it. I think they met once before this.
But she definitely wasn't part of that 10-year training period.
No, no. The only like the thing where they mention meeting each other is that they fought once.
I love her look and outfit in this. She looks like an animated series character. Like it
Mhm.
looks like Bruce Timm could have designed her.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me read the super chat real quick.
Mhm.
MP $10 super chat. Thanks for the support tonight, guys. I agree that Jason should have stayed dead. I can't even really see Red Hood as the same character who died in '88. The Batman characters in comics of circa 2005 feel so removed from their '80s and '90s versions. I 100% agree with everything he just said.
Yeah, I agree too. But I have that with Red Hood especially.
And it's easy to uh, hand wave that and I mean, I guess this is an okay explanation, but like you can explain that by saying, you know, you go through this kind of ordeal and then you've got this long several year period uh where you're doing your own thing before we come back and see you, and so you're a different person now.
Mhm.
There is that. If it's like that in the comics, because I've only seen the Red Hood movie, and there's that long period where he's doing his own thing apart from Batman. I don't know how the comics handle that, but
I think it's just he comes back to life and he's mad that Batman got him killed.
it just sounds like
From what I
everything about that
remember.
movie is better.
But I could be wrong. It's been a long time since I've read it. Oh, you're muted.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're okay.
Part of the reason I picked this, besides the fact that it's weird we've never done it and it's major, is Austin and I are doing Under the Red Hood this Friday for the Superhero Rewind commentary project. So it's all connected. I thought about picking the Under the Hood comics because I've never read that, but since we've never done this, I thought this would be a more important thing for us to review.
Yeah, absolutely.
And people actually like this.
Hmm. Well, we flipped it around, I guess, then, because people. I mean, I guess some people like the Under the Red Hood book, but I feel like I mostly hear bad things. But I mean, I guess I also mostly hear bad things about this book. But I was gonna say, in that sense, we combined it, and then we can read Under the Red Hood when we do the Death in the Family movie, because everyone hates that movie.
And
Movie.
and that's going to be a weird one because it's interactive.
Yeah, I don't even know how we do that one.
We'll
It's also like 20 minutes.
we'll figure it out. Yeah, I'm not sure if we will do that because it's not really a feature, but if you do all the choices, maybe it gets closer to feature length. I don't know. I've never sat through it. I bought it and I watched the first 15 minutes and I went, this is all just recapping Under the Red Hood. I'm not watching this. And I didn't.
Everybody pick this choice in three,
Right?
two,
Now!
one. Now.
Schmackers Lover, $2 super chat. If Jason Todd had lived, does he appear in Batman the Animated Series? Very likely. I mean, it would be Jason Todd instead of Tim Drake. Whether, like, I don't even know if you would get a Tim Drake in the comics, of course, if that were to happen. People were speculating about that in the comics, or in the comments,
Yeah.
excuse me. But, your season 4 Robin would have been Jason Todd instead of Tim Drake, probably.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I could see that either way because there's also a lot of just weird choices in the DCAU. I could still see them picking Tim,
Yeah,
but it's more likely to be Jason, I guess, if he isn't dead.
because of course in that show Tim ends up being more of a conglomeration or an
Hmm.
amalgamation, I should say, between Tim and Jason Todd. And interestingly,
Yeah.
we'll talk about this when we do the rewind commentary on this movie, Austin. But I had kind of forgotten how much Jason Todd was baked into Batman Forever's Dick Grayson.
Oh,
He's
yes.
he's kind of just a mix of those characters because like Two Face kills his parents, and the whole movie he's trying to go after Two Face, wants revenge on him, and then he doesn't kill him at the end. Like he's got Jason Todd's origin story.
One, I've always said with legacy characters like that, when we adapt them, we tend to mix them as opposed to just adapting one of them. And Robin absolutely fits into that. Not as much as, say, someone like a Ghost Rider or the Flash, but like
That's a great
you
point.
still have you still have an element of that.
And on the Marvel side, well, you said Ghost Rider, but a lot of the amalgamation we do on the Marvel side is cherry picking stuff from Ultimate.
Yes, absolutely.
So a big thing that I had forgotten about this that was kind of a fun surprise is after Jason Todd's death, Superman shows up.
Hmm. Yes, because this is one of my favorite Superman moments in any comic, and I bring it up constantly. But I don't know if I've ever brought it up on
Oh,
the channel.
flesh colored Joker face is really cool.
Yes. No, he looks great, especially because this is that era where he's got the really long chin. So seeing that design flesh colored looks really like off-putting. It's like,
What
oh, that guy's really creepy looking.
what they should have done is the classic Joker takes over a late night talk show thing and just let it be basically the Tonight Show and have him pretend to be Jay Leno. Because like when he's got the flesh, the flesh paint on his face, he just looks like Jay Leno.
Jay Leno is just weird and off-putting.
Yeah, Jay Leno is secretly a mass murdering psychopath, but just nobody knew about that.
Hmm. Exactly.
That's right.
I'm sure Jay Leno's beaten some kids to death before. That wouldn't shock me. Don't sue me, Jay Leno.
We're not
It was a
actually
joke.
saying that. We don't think Jay Leno. Uh, yeah, he wouldn't. Jay Leno likes all kinds of humor, which is the thing I've always
Exactly.
respected about that guy.
Exactly. That's why he's beloved.
But anyways, so Superman shows up and says, "Look, Batman, you can't go after the Joker because he has diplomatic immunity because he's an ambassador for Iran, and nothing he's ever done can he be prosecuted for now." And Batman does not promise that he won't go and do that, and he slaps Superman in the face, which is amazing. I I'll get to those panels in a little bit. Because now we're looking at the classic. The only thing people remember about this book, the beating Robin to death with a crowbar, but in front of his own mother. That like we have to emphasize that because nobody talks about that, and that makes it so much more messed up.
Mhm. Yeah, I do like that they give that humanizing moment where she's just watching and then it's finally like, oh yeah, okay, I
That
don't like that. I'm gonna
hurts.
turn away.
Friggin' hurts reading that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so let me just get past the big page.
Well, I like
There's the
too that
big
when
page.
I like too when she's dying and she's, giving like her final words to Batman and she's like, he ended up being a good boy much better than I deserved. I really like
Yeah.
that line.
Yeah, good call. Uh
Yeah, her death is really effective, I thought.
Real quick, the famous full page spread is in my mind maybe calling back to Supergirl in on Infinite Earths. And then
Oh, sure. Yeah, I
when
didn't
we
think of that.
when we get to Death of Superman, Lois holding Superman's broken and bloodied body is harkening back to this.
Hmm. Well, and this is the big image everyone knows, obviously, but the page before this I actually like a little bit more, where he picks up the body and just embraces it.
Yeah.
I really like that panel.
And
Not that the big full page spread isn't great, but this one I thought hit me a little bit more on this read.
the backbreak in Nightfall is also thinking about this. Just in being a full page spread that's like that big moment that's gonna stick with you, and that like
Hmm.
everything has changed after this. Like it's brutal and it's hard to look at, and those are kind of the big three for me. Like the death
Hmm.
of Jason Todd, the death of Superman, and the backbreak with Nightfall. They all do it. The only difference with Death of Superman is it does it over a gatefold spread instead of one big page. But I did
Hmm.
want to point that stuff out.
When Death of Superman, I would say more so takes that panel I just mentioned, and that's the full page spread. Like it's more of that kind of a shot, which is cool.
Yeah, that's true.
Also,
Just to just the fact that his body is laid out like this with arms around it, though.
no, of course,
But
of
you're
course.
but
I
you're
just
right.
meant like in terms of like the actual like kind of posing, or the way she's holding him, I guess. I also really like the moment when Batman finds the body and he's like, just looking at it, I can tell I don't have to check a pulse, but I do anyways. I really like
Yes.
that moment. That's a really nice line.
And I just love all the internal monologue and how conflicted Batman is uh, in wanting to go after the Joker after
Mhm,
Jason's killed.
mhm,
That's my favorite page. We'll get to that in a minute. But Superman comes to Batman and he says, "You can't go after the Joker. It will cause an international incident." And immediately, my brain goes to Dark Knight Returns, which is only a couple of years before this, and we have what could have been a kind of a similar situation where uh, the big thing standing in Batman's way is Superman, not a tool for the government like he is in that, but kind of the stand-in for the government in saying like these are the rules, you can't break them, you're gonna mess up everything, and Batman going, but justice versus the law, because that's what this is all about. And I had a couple of thoughts. The first one was this is what BVS should have been built around. This is the situation that could so plausibly, in a real dramatic, effective way, make you want to see Batman and Superman fight each other. You open with the death of Robin, Jason Todd, or whichever Robin it's going to be, and then Superman says, Batman, you can't. Superman in that movie says, I know we just met, but you can't. You can't go after the Joker. You're going to cause an international incident. Whatever situation you come up with that. I mean, in that movie, you probably don't want him to be a Iranian ambassador.
Well, and probably I think it would be good too if you're just adapting this into a film. You know, in this context of we have Man of Steel and now we have a sequel, you could do something too where Superman just sees Batman as this guy that's like going crazy, and he's got to take him out. And
Yeah,
through like the Clark Kent investigation side, maybe then kind of puts the Robin stuff together. Like he doesn't even know at first,
yeah.
and is like, oh, you know, I get this person now. Like he's just hurting. Like
I get
I
why
can
he's going
step
this
in and
far. I get why he doesn't
yeah,
trust the police. I get why he thinks he has to go against the rules. It's not as black
yeah,
and white as I thought, and
exactly.
maybe maybe even like my having these powers and being invulnerable makes it easier for me to see it as black and white because I like I can solve these problems more easily than a Batman could.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. Well, especially too because Man of Steel doesn't really have a Clark Kent, so like that would have been an interesting way to show why Clark Kent is important in a sequel where now he has that identity.
Yeah, that's right. And I thought especially that movie should have considered doing that because we have Jason Todd's death in the background, and that is part of the reason that Batman is as extreme as he is. just like with later DC stuff with this. Like it's already baked in, and Zack Snyder wanted to make a solo prequel movie that did it. Why not just do it all in that movie? It would have been great motivation. Like I really wish they'd gone that way.
Yeah, because they used it as shorthand, but it would have been better if it was just baked into the plot.
Austin, Dan Schneider has once again brought up the 2004 unmade BVS movie, and he says this is sort of like the unmade 2004 Batman versus Superman movie, where Batman is trying to kill the Joker and Superman is trying to stop him. And I guess they got that from this. Like, I never thought about that, because I forgot that this was here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, like I said, this is one of my favorite Superman bits, which is in the UN scene where Joker gasses the UN and Superman breathes up all the gas.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
So that he can then like fly up into the sky and breathe it out. That is so funny.
What's great about it too is, and we're just about to get John Byrne's Superman. You can tell that we're not there yet, or are we?
No, Byrne's Superman I think is before this.
Because Byrne's Superman should not be able to do that. That's a little far for him. And I also think it's really funny that he sucked up all the gas, but he can still talk. He's like,
I was thinking about that because I was like, I don't remember him talking, but I guess it's just in his lungs and he knows how to talk.
I got all this gas in here. Just give me a minute. I gotta fly out and get rid of it. I'll be with you in just a moment. Batman. It's fantastic.
Well, Byrne's Superman is friends with Ronald Reagan too, just like the Dark Knight Returns Superman. So like we are playing with that to a degree.
And Joker calls himself a victim of Reaganomics.
Yeah.
Dan Schneider, $2 super chat. I think they were looking at this. He's talking about with the previous super. Yes, I do.
Yeah, I can see that.
I don't know where else that would have come from.
Yeah, because I mean, it's obviously like flipped, but I'd imagine so.
I think he meant for that 04 script.
No, I know, but like, because that is Superman.
I mean, Batman's trying to kill the Joker and Superman's trying to stop him. Where else would that come from? Like,
no, sorry. For a second, I had it flipped, where it was Superman's trying to kill Joker. Sorry,
no,
my bad. Cool. I got turned around.
No, it's not Injustice. You're thinking of Injustice.
Yeah, exactly. No, my bad.
But I mean, it's possible that they come up with that independently, but like you have the 3 Batman stories that people that don't know a lot about Batman know, and then this would be in like the second grouping of those. The only difference is this is one of the stories that people remember the big thing that happens in it, but they haven't necessarily looked at it. And it's possible that somebody goes, well, I've heard of Death in the Family, and that sounds like a good meaty thing to adapt. And they actually did read it. I mean, it's possible.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, like you said, you could probably get there from Dark Knight Returns, where Batman goes after the Joker, Joker dies, and then now Superman comes in to stop Batman.
That's true, too.
You could get to that place from there, but I'd imagine they probably looked at this.
Because I think you could do a really cool adaptation of this story that ends, or like the end of the second act is the Batman-Superman fight from Dark Knight Returns. I think you could really blend those easily.
Absolutely.
And could be really cool. But anyway, that's what I wish they had done. But but the thing I don't like about the Joker plot with this, Austin, is Superman warns Batman, you're going to cause an international incident. And then that just resolves itself. Like, Joker goes and he's gonna gas the UN. There's not any period of pretense where people are having to humor him and let him be in that role for a while. And I admit that is probably what the Joker would do, but it would be more dramatic and interesting if you had a situation where Batman did have to deal with, I may cause an international incident. Joker solves that problem for him by then just doing stupid Joker, like scary Joker things.
That's actually what I like about it, but I can see where you're coming from, in that you could have made this a lot bigger, but I actually really like that, like I said, Joker has no interest in playing along with this. he's almost annoyed that he has to. Like, there's the part where,
But I just don't know what
uh,
the point of even bringing Superman in is if you're not going to play that out.
mhm. Yeah,
Am I wrong about that?
I mean, like it sets Batman up in a spot where he's got like one arm tied behind his back, even going into this, like even with Joker
That's true.
doing this, where like if Superman's not there at all, he's completely boned.
Yeah, because it does give Superman a reason to come in and be a plot device. Because Batman's
Mhm.
basically going to use him as a kill screen move.
Yeah, well, I like too that Superman's also not naive. He knows, the Joker has this in him, and he's probably going to do something. So he is there just in case, even though he also can't do anything. But I do think it raises the stakes in that Batman can't be there. He gets around it by being Bruce Wayne, but that's still putting him at a disadvantage in coming into the situation.
Okay, that's a good point.
But like I said, I can also see where you're coming from in that you could have made this a lot bigger, but it's almost like the Joker laughs and says, "Yeah, but why would you?" and does his own thing, which I like in terms of this character. Like I think that fits more into what he would do.
Yeah, but unfortunately, being such a bizarre choice, that's the other thing people remember about this book is, oh yeah, that's
Yes.
that weird story where he becomes an Iranian ambassador for some reason. And why would you do that immediately after the gut punch that is the Robin death? You basically turn the page and you have the funniest thing the Joker has ever done, and you're like,
But that's what I like about it. Like the
yeah.
Joker killing Robin has like nothing to do with anything he's interested in or trying to do in this book. It's just, oh, here's the thing I can do. And then, he does this and he's not even really thinking about that anymore. Like he already did that. It's done. And and then like I said, if you think this is stupid, so does he.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's one of those things where people just think Starlin's crazy for even thinking to do that.
And he definitely is. That's a very like out of pocket joy.
No, it really is.
But I don't know. I get a kick out of it. Like it's really funny.
Bob the Hunt, $5 super chat. Do you think animated series could have done the diplomatic immunity villain plot, or would it have been too silly for that show? What about the Batman 2004? I actually see that as more of an animated series choice than
That's what I was
the
gonna
Batman
say.
choice.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I mean, possibly.
I
I don't
actually
see that
think
show.
I actually think animated series Joker, I buy more thinking to do this plot in the first place as opposed to it falling in his lap.
Sure. Yeah. No, I mean, I could see that as an episode. I don't know that it would be Iran. Like, I could see it more so being, uh, even like a Russia type
Or
situation.
they'd make up a place, they'd do Corto
Or they'd make
Maltese
up
or
a place.
something.
Yeah, something like that. Like, Red Claw recruits the Joker.
Oh god, that's the team up everybody wanted.
Exactly. She's the new Harley Quinn.
Yeah, apparently they finally do adapt the Jason Todd death in the Batman in the Adventures Continues comics, the animated series line, and just everything I hear
Weird.
about that book sounds like misstep after misstep, man. Like
Yeah, why
it's
would you do
way too
that?
late to finally do the. Why would you even bother with it
And
in
they
that
already
continuity?
did their own version, basically. I don't know. That's silly.
Are you talking about with the Batman Beyond movie?
Yeah, like
Yeah,
they do like I kind of riff on that with Tim Drake.
yeah. What would be the point of doing it again? It seemed like the mission
Yeah.
statement of that book is just what major things have we never adapted, whether they came way later or not, in this visual style. And then I go, and you're still not doing it because the style doesn't look right.
Well, and I don't know, this is maybe just a hang up that I have, but like I never find it interesting when we take something like that and say, "Oh, here it is now with things that came out way after."
No.
I don't know. I never find that interesting. Like, I don't care if we have the Court of Owls in the you know, the Adventure Continues or whatever it's called.
I mean, I
Like,
will say it sometimes depends on what it is. Because we've had this conversation with stuff, and I'm a hypocrite if I say I never like it,
because you
because
like Bane in
and
'66.
I like Harley Quinn in '66. So some of that stuff is fun.
Well, I mean, there are things you can be won over on. Like I don't think that that's an
You're
issue.
saying nothing has to be a hard and fast rule, but just in general,
Yeah, yeah,
why
exactly.
would you do that? Like, I don't need the Batman who laughs in animated series continuity. Stop it.
Yeah, I saw that toy of that and I was like, what are we doing? Come on now.
Stop it. They're like, the problem with that show is that it didn't have 25 seasons.
Yeah, well, and it's like seeing The Simpsons with smartphones now, where it's like um, that show is so rooted in a specific era of Batman in the way that The Simpsons is rooted in the '90s, that it feels wrong to me when I see that stuff like that added into that. Where it's like
Yeah.
Bruce Timm does. I guarantee Bruce Timm does not care about the Man Who Laughs to the Court of Owls in the same way that he cares about like '70s and '80s Batman comics.
Yeah, it's why I didn't like seeing the Power Rangers comics updated to present day, because that's all so totally 90s, and they kept the continuity the same, but they said, oh, but they had cell phones the whole time. I'm like, it's the whole concept is too 90s to do that. Stop it.
Yeah, exactly.
We are at past 2 hours somehow. I don't know how we've been talking about this long. But Austin, what other aspects or sections of this book have we not talked about that you want to talk about? I kind of broke down
Oh,
that last issue, but we can go to that and show the art and stuff if you want to.
yeah, I was gonna say we haven't really talked too much about, like, you did break it down, but I guess we could talk more about that. If there's not anything else you have for this, there's that beautiful Joker design
Yeah,
and the
it's
wonderful scene
hilarious.
of Superman breathing in all the gas.
Oh, I did want to say I love all the red sky stuff here. Speaking of animated series,
Yeah. Well, it's really nice for this climax too, because it's not like the book has that throughout.
another thought I had is, and pardon me, obviously I'm saying this retroactively, but I think it would have been cool if the Joker was more of a later scene reveal instead of Batman chasing him all through the Middle East, because it would have made uh, those two subplots converging not seem as ridiculously convenient, and it also just would have been like a nice shocking surprise where do it like Mask of the Phantasm, where you don't expect the Joker to show up and then there he is.
Hmm.
That was a thought I had. Was I think this would be greatly improved by having the Joker come out of nowhere and then retroactively realize what he's been doing the whole time, and
Hmm.
then pages after we see him, he's hitting Robin with a crowbar. I think it would be that would have been a lot more effective.
No, that's fair. I think what I like about it in the context of his run is that you're not really dealing with any Batman villains. It's just like Batman fighting KG Beast and these random stories. And then when we finally get Joker here, we get to like really live with his take of it in terms of like I said at the beginning, just Batman being very involved with world kind of politics and just the state of the world, really.
That's true.
So
He
it's
was
kind of fun
commenting on all
getting to
that.
see Joker like interact with that stuff in the way that we got to see Batman do it before. But that's more so in terms of his run. Like you're talking about this as a story, and I can agree with that.
Chewbacca's
I
love the
think
five
that's
dollars
fair.
super chat. Bruce Timm hates Doomsday and Bane. He would absolutely hate Court of Owls and Batman Who Laughs, especially Batman Who Laughs.
Especially.
I I agree. MP
Yeah,
dollar
I think
dollar
so
ninety
too.
nine. It feels kind of odd. Ra's al Ghul wasn't in this.
Yeah, he gets mentioned once, but I'm ultimately glad he's not. But he could have been.
Yeah, I mean, I'm wondering what he would do in this story.
There is like a version of this probably where I mean, if you adapted it this is probably what it would be, where you just have him in place of the terrorists, where
Yeah.
instead of like
Or, or,
Iranian.
or you say Talia al Ghul could be Jason Todd's mom.
There you
I guess
go.
you could do that. I don't know how old she's ever supposed to be. I never have a good sense of her age.
She's vaguely mother age.
Vaguely mother age. I think 430 is one of the best single standalone issues of Batman ever written.
This is also a beautiful cover, by the way, while we're looking
Yeah,
at it. This is
yes.
probably my favorite cover of his whole run.
This is a single issue that stands alone beautifully by itself and also serves as a really great thematic epilogue to Death in the Family. And I really think it should be included with the trades, like I said. But it barely even mentions what we've just dealt with. And if you read all of that, it has this whole other layer to it. But you could hand somebody this out of context, and it's this beautiful encapsulation of the tragedy of Batman, the for lack of a better word, the psychosis of Batman, the childhood trauma that he's still dealing with. You got panels where he's flashing back to the day his parents died, and he's in almost like a fetal position where it's like this is a kid that never grew up but is still dealing with that, and it's like it's able to add this really interesting wrinkle without it feeling retconny to the day his parents died, while also feeling like just an encapsulation of the psychology of the character.
Yeah, exactly.
And I have to own it.
I think I described this issue to you as like just the cap on Starlin's like entire take on Batman, and I think it's exactly what you just said. Where this,
So I'm
it's
gonna check
almost
and
like
see if
this.
I own this, because if I don't, I'm probably gonna buy it on stream. Anyway,
No, like this feels like, oh hey Jim Starlin, do you want to make a one shot? And he's like, okay, well I'm gonna say everything I have to say about Batman as a character in one issue. It's really perfect. It's very simple. There's also not a ton of dialogue. Like we're looking at a page with more dialogue here, but compared to the rest of his run, I don't think there's a ton of dialogue,
I
and
do
you get
have
a lot more
this.
captions. Oh, nice.
So that's exciting.
Yeah, I was shocked when you messaged me and you were like, "This is maybe one of the best issues I've ever read."
It is though.
No, it's really good. I just when you said that, I was like, "Oh wow."
I think this is up there with the what is it? The Russian roulette Daredevil issue
Sure,
by
yeah.
Miller. Like it reminded me of that, just in how good of just a uh,
It's like a short
standalone
story. It
short
is.
story it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. No, absolutely. Yeah, we don't even really get anything about this sniper guy. Like it's not about any of that, but he's also pretty cool.
Tyler says to me this issue is kind of retconny, but I guess that's because of later things I've read. That's totally fair, but I mean it's not too retconny in that it doesn't overly complicate like the way the Waynes are killed or anything like that. Like there's not anything ultra convoluted about it. Like
Mhm.
it does add something in the situation that he's in with his parents, and you never would have thought that he it's a little extreme. I mean that he says the same day he hates his father. Like I guess that is just dictionary definition a retcon. Um
No, I mean I think it adds a level of sadness that wasn't there before, but it's not something that couldn't have been there. Especially when you're talking about this event that then becomes the entire, motivation of this person to be completely different moving forward.
well, I also think it's interesting that you get the whole run with Jason Todd, just like the whole time he's around before you and he dies before you ever understand what Batman sees of himself in Jason Todd.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a great point.
It's like now I understand how he saw him and reading this, and then you get the guilt that Bruce has about his parents' death with the guilt with Jason Todd's death, and I don't know. It's just really interesting parallels.
Hmm. No, it's got a great ending too. Like I like the whole because Batman's so lost in this, he's not doing his job as efficiently as he normally does, which then ends up getting this guy killed.
And we haven't talked about this enough, but Aparo just kicks ass at panel layout.
Oh yeah, Apparo's awesome.
He's so good, and I always think Breyfogle is my favorite Batman artist, and then I look at Aparo and I'm like, okay, maybe it's Tide. Like, and they're
There's
doing
so many
similar
good ones
things
though.
too.
Like,
Like they're not too far away from each other, Breyfogle and Aparo.
mhm. I mean, there's so many good ones. I think it was Mark Millar I heard say this. I can't remember for sure, but I thought it was a good point, which is that a lot of artists want to come on to a character because they can be, the best artist on that character. But so many artists have that with Batman that you kind of just come in and you're just another one for the pile. But and there's so many good ones.
But yeah, I adore this issue. I'm gonna have to pull
Mm.
this single out and display it somewhere. I'm so happy with it. And it's also neat as the last issue of somebody's run. Because how often
Yes.
I mean, I know he's got a shorter run, but how often do those get real compromised and the last issue is kind of whatever? Like, just getting to put a pin on it like that.
Well, yeah, and I especially like that it's not like an ending, but it very much just is a pin in this is my Batman.
And I liked
Yeah.
the Gordon speech at the beginning of it,
Hmm.
where he's like after everything that's happened with Jason Todd, I like getting to Gordon and him, and Gordon doesn't know about any of that. The only reference you get to the death is uh, Gordon asks Batman if he's got Robin tonight, and Batman looks at him real forlorn and just says no, and Gordon's like something happened, something's up, and after all that, you get this great Gordon speech where he says like Batman's just trying to get in his head, like Batman's real driven, and he's been warring on criminals all this time, and I don't know why he does what he does, but I have my suspicions, and then the whole issue is about why he does what he does, and it's not exactly what you thought it was, which I guess is what's retconny about it, but it's also what I really like about it.
Yeah, and also too when this guy gets killed, and then Gordon looks up and he's like, it didn't work out this time, but I know that he did everything he could to, for this not to happen.
Yeah, and then that's paralleling what just happened with Robin, and of course
Hmm.
Batman's beating himself up about it.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know, it's just beautiful. They don't do it like this anymore, Austin.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a perfect issue.
This is a perfect issue. Now, Death in the Family is far from a perfect book, and when I say they don't do it like this anymore, I don't mean that there aren't like improvements and things I like about modern comics versus stuff that was going on then. But this is massively refreshing to me. Like
Hmm.
this is the flavor I miss
Hmm.
of Batman, and in some ways, comics in general. But anyway,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we got like very hardcore on the like uh what was it, like decondensing stories, that we've kind of lost the magic of issues like this to a degree. I mean, it's not like we can never have stuff like this, but
but it does feel like we in general got a lot more done in an issue back then, and we've talked about this ad nauseum. But the idea that issues were meant to be more or less readable, even in the middle of an arc, if you haven't read the last one, which requires some sometimes clunky recapping. You have that in Death in the Family. Like each issue does have a little bit of recapping at the start, and it's not super clunky. I mean, Starlin's good at it, but I will say sometimes we're not recapping the things I think should be recapped, because there is no mention in Death in the Family proper of the girl that commits suicide in the issue before, and Robin dropping that guy to his death, and you need that. That's part of why I'm
Yeah.
annoyed if that's not in the trades. Like,
Mhm.
that should be recapped, and I don't think it is.
No, the most you get is just Batman being like, "Oh, he's been in a rougher place recently," and that's kind of it.
He's been going a little harder on the criminals lately. Like, no, he murdered a guy.
Mhm.
You should tell us about that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think for me, like that, like I said, that is the moment where his fate is sealed. Like
Yeah,
that's it.
it's like the audience. This is the meta thing. It's like the audience that voted to kill him is the universe making him pay for that.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. One,
That's
like
not
I
why
said,
they
I
voted
really
for that,
like
though. The people that voted for that just like Dick Grayson and don't like him. Like that's why they voted for that.
exactly. But luckily, it worked out for the story.
It wasn't he
Uh,
deserves to die.
mhm. Yeah, exactly. But I really like that the last thing we get before death of the family or death in the family. Thanks, Snyder. I do that all the time now.
Yeah. Can we please stop riffing on old
At least that was
titles?
the first time. At least that was the first time that's happened tonight.
Can we stop riffing
I
on
do
old
like.
titles so that like I can say Secret Wars and we know which one we're talking about? Like it's irritating.
Yes. No, I really like that the last thing we get before death in the family proper is just Batman being like, "Look, all of these people are dead because of you."
Yeah.
To Jason Todd.
I want to say thanks to MP, which is a name I don't think I've seen before tonight. 499 super chat.
I feel
Has
like I know that
has
commenter.
he been around? Well, apologies if I
I feel
didn't
like it.
remember MP, but I don't. Maybe not. Maybe he hasn't done super chats before.
I was gonna say I think it's been a while since I've seen that name.
Why did you say that name?
Why'd you say those two letters?
He says in another 499 super chat, I'd like to see you cover the Joker's return in 450 to 451, also by a payroll. Parallels Batman and Gordon both struggling with wanting to kill him. Man, if I had the
Oh,
time
cool.
to just go through this period and just every couple of days do the next 4 issues, I would be a blissful YouTube reviewer. Like,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't know if I've read that stuff. I mean, possibly. I don't. If
yeah,
I
I
have, it's
definitely
been a
haven't.
long time. Well, I mean, no, because you said you wanted to do this, and like I said, I slapped those issues on, and then realized that two of them were double length, and I was like, oh man, we turned this from like a 4 issue review to just like a ton of issues, but
No, it
it was
wasn't
great
crazy. You
stuff.
only added 3, and you didn't add any of the thicker ones. Those were already in there,
Mhm.
so
Yeah, that's like another +2 that I didn't know about.
that's true. But you only added 3 in total.
Mhm. But I was also thinking that before that, where I was like, "Oh man, now this became like an 11 issue review." I guess it's only 9. That's okay.
MP, you should definitely get the DC finest volumes, which are collecting this era comprehensively. That's cool. I read almost exclusively in digital these days because I'm a trader.
Yeah, and I get books digitally, like on Comixology, but none of those are available digitally. It's really frustrating because I've been wanting
Oh,
them
okay.
to adapt to finally put stuff from the Charlton comics in print, and they're finally starting. Peacemaker just got a trade, and it's a DC Finest volume, so it's just not digital, which is unfortunate because I'd love to read it.
Well, Austin, anything else you want to talk about with this before we bid everybody farewell this evening?
No, I think we got through everything.
Well, thanks everybody for being here. This is a nice crowd for this one, and thanks a lot for. Sorry, I'm falling asleep. Thanks to the super chatters for helping us out tonight. Austin and I, like I said, will be back on Friday for the Under the Hood, Under the Red Hood. That title is weird. It's like it's weird that you would get, because it's like you get under a hood, you get under the Red Hood, but then I'm glad that we distinguished that from Watchmen. So anyway, but we're gonna come back on Friday for that, and then the Thursday, right before that, we're gonna be doing some Peter David Hulk. So we'll do some more classic comics this week. That'll be good.
Yeah, absolutely. And for anyone interested for my pick, next time, because people keep asking
Yes.
about it, my pick's going to be the first arc of Nothing vs. Batman.
Okay, what does that mean for people that don't know what you're talking
Oh,
about?
it's absolute Batman. Sorry, I'm so just lost in calling it Nothing vs.
Yeah, nobody knows what that means. That's like me saying Jurassic House. Like,
I was going to say, you can't say anything, you hypocrite.
No, I know, but I have a vested interest in people knowing what you're talking about right now, because I know that's going to be popular. People have been asking us to talk about that. I'm really curious about it. Everything about it looks like nothing I want from Batman, but not one person have I heard say it's not good. So I'm going to be fascinated to look at them.
Well, and I've read the first issue of every Absolute book so far, and it's my least favorite of all of them. So I'm interested to see if that turns around. But I don't dislike it. It's just I think all of the other ones are better.
So you only read the first issue?
Yes, I was going to plow through them, and then I went, oh, if we're going to do this, I might as well just wait.
Okay, cool. How much do we have to read?
I figured we'd just do the first 6 issues.
Okay. I just wasn't sure how they were trading them or what the arcs were.
Yeah, I think they're only trading the first 6. I think 7 just came out, but I assumed we would just do 6.
Oh, okay, cool. I didn't even know how far it was in now. So, but there's enough for a trade now. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. MP, I did not care for Absolute Batman. Well, we'll see what we think about it. Back to more
Like
Snyder.
I said, I like the other ones a lot more, but that's whatever.
Fascinating. All right, folks. Thanks again for being here. We sure appreciate it. We'll see you again real soon. I was Captain Logan, and this was Austin, the Day Ghost.
Have a good night, everybody. I somehow did not die in this video, and I'm impressed.
Well, I meant to take a vote about it, and I never did that. So next time I'll bring my crowbar.
Well, I think somebody at the beginning of the show said everybody vote on which of the two should die, and only Dan Schneider responded and said that it should be me, so I guess I can die in the next few seconds while you're ending.
Well, I guess I'm glad no one else showed up for that vote.
See, one vote truly does make a difference.
Where's my crowbar? Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye.